Dave and Irene have told us time and time again, spend 10% of your time understanding and identifying the problem, and spend 90% of your time, energy, and passion on solving it. We've talked to thousands of families over the years, and overwhelmingly, parents' first concerns come back to the most basic needs of a child: to simply have a friend. Children with autism don't behave in a typical fashion, so things like going to parties tend to disappear. The ability to make friends is extremely challenging because of the extra patience required to communicate with others. More and more parents are left feeling unwelcome in the community, and it becomes harder and harder for them to find places where they can bring their children to feel loved and to feel understood. I mentioned that we had an exciting announcement to share with you today. Jake's House has been so fortunate over the years to have support from thousands of friends and supporters. Today, we honor our very first Legend of Distinction Award from the Toronto Police Service's Superintendent Ron Taverner. To provide a little more background on Ron before we present the award will be our current Chief of Police, Mark Saunders. In his 37th year with Toronto Police Service, Chief Saunders is dedicated to public service excellence and to increasing public safety. Prior to being appointed to Chief in 2015, he rose through the ranks, serving in a variety of investigative positions, such as the unit commander of Canada's largest homicide squad. A strong advocate for community engagement and partnership, Chief Saunders shares many of the values we live here at Jake's House. And we are honored to have him here to speak today. Can you please welcome Chief Saunders?
Distinguished guests, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. And I'll speak on behalf of the Toronto Police Service since I am chief, and I guess that would be something to start on. We live in a very unique city, and with that comes a very unique police service. The police service has an understanding of the importance of developing strong partnerships if we're going to understand community safety properly. And I want to thank everybody involved in Jake's House. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for all that you do. Dave and Irene, wherever you are. I mean, thank you so much, and to your team. And as easy as this looks, we show up here and this venue is fantastic. I know that there's a tremendous amount of work that goes in on a regular basis to make this happen, and there's a lot of commitment, a lot of teamwork in order to make it happen. And so thank you so much, and I understand Ottawa is the next location in which you'll be doing this once again. But I've got to tell you, when you talk about person of distinction, you nailed it. You really did nail it with Superintendent Ron Taverner. I've known Superintendent Taverner for over 30 years now, and he is consistent. He is a consistent, great leader for many capacities. What I've liked about him, what I've admired about him, is he has no problem being at the tip of the wedge for any critical situation, from an operational perspective, but also an equally important from a community perspective. Anyone that understands Superintendent Taverner's portfolio understands that he knows the importance of giving back to the community, of aligning the community, and creating those bonds and relationships so that we become stronger at what we do. And what I love about the city is we have so many people that care and give back. And today is just a testament of the many people that do care. And when we talk about Jake's House, and when we talk about inclusivity, when we talk about empowerment, awareness, partnerships, and compassion, all of those qualities and attributes that Jake's House represent, I want to say thank you for all the work that Jake's House does. When you are from a family that lives with autism, you understand the importance of lack of support, lack of knowledge. People can do things with the right intentions, but if they don't understand what they're dealing with, it doesn't work. And Jake's House understands it. Jake's House gets it. And I'm so glad that you're growing, that you're developing. And that awareness piece comes from twofold. Outward facing to the community. If you can keep the discussion on the table, opportunities for funding, opportunities for helping those that need help, have a better chance. But the awareness from inside as well too, because when you are in a house that lives with autism, such as myself, that awareness piece that others are going through the same thing as you is such a tremendous empowerment to us. Because when we understand that there are others that go through the same trials and tribulations and challenges, lack of funding, lack of understanding, when you know that there are others like that, it gives you strength to want to continue. And Jake's House does all of that. So today, as we celebrate a great organization and a great man of distinction, this truly is a fantastic celebration, and I'm so glad that you invited me here to witness this, because I'm sure that bigger and better things are going to happen. But to you, Superintendent Taverner, thank you so much for all the work that you have done, all the time that you take on your own each and every day for making a positive difference, not just for the Toronto Police Service, but more importantly, for why we joined. We all joined law enforcement, sworn and civilian, to make a positive difference in the lives that we've come into contact with. And Superintendent does that on a daily basis, and it is easy for me to say, more so than any commander that I've ever worked with or ever known. And so Superintendent Taverner, well-deserved reward, well-deserved accolade, and I want you to continue that great work and understanding and teach others the importance of compassion and working with community as well as you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chief Saunders. As previously mentioned, there are 400,000 families dealing with autism in Canada. Our founders happen to be one of those families. They have brought their personal insights and experiences to all things related Jake's House. Over the years, we've all witnessed their willingness to share their pains, challenges, joys, and personal stories to better not only the lives of their children, but others as well. Their passion to support others in a similar circumstance is both inspiring and contagious. While we will all eagerly await for science, the Jake's House cure is to build a community with family and friends. To further explain, I now ask to join us for a few remarks one of our co-founders, Mr. David Bodanis.
Thanks, everybody. I'd first of all like to welcome all of you here today. I appreciate that we gave a lot of you very little information about what we were doing, and that was somewhat on purpose. Just for a little bit of history, we are having, at the moment, as we are talking here today, we are having our 14th annual holiday party in the North Hall here at the Toronto Congress Centre. And maybe we should just all stop for a second and welcome the Premier of Ontario, who just happened to walk in the door. So. Very timely. So I wanted to give you all a little bit of history about Jake's House. We founded this charity exactly 1 month before we had our very first event. And our very first event was a holiday party held at the Toronto Congress Centre. And it's funny, but I was talking to Chief Saunders earlier, and our first Santa Claus at our first event was 1 month retired Chief Boothby. So I don't know how long the Chief plans on working, but I think as soon as he retires, we're hooking him up as the next year's Santa Claus. I think you're all with me on that. So we'll put together a group, we'll kind of go over that. But really what's important and why it's relevant to our conversation today is that Jennifer is correct. Irene and I, 2 of our 3 sons, do have autism. Our son Jake, who the charity was named after, is affected quite severely in that he has absolutely no ability to communicate, so he is the very definition of an at-risk child. And So Irene and I talked about it. We did not get the kind of family Christmas invitation that we had gotten the year before, and it was understandable. Our boys were not typical in the way that they interacted with our other cousins and our family members, so we decided to have our own party. So we invited 23 other friends that had children that had autism, and about 3 days before we got to the event, we were going to have about 25 kids, and we maybe had about 75 people in total. We were terrified. We're like, what are we going to do with 25 autistic children in one room? And I mean, we were terrified. So we called Chief Boothby, and Chief Boothby introduced us to Ron Taverner. And as they say, the rest is history. So I want to explain something that Ron did. That's not me. Sorry, definitely not me. We're good. So essentially, I talked to Ron, and he said, well, what's the issue? And I said, well, I'm afraid the children are going to bolt, and there's so many unknowns that we can't even start to quantify what we're going to do. So he said, well, how many kids are there? And I said, there's my 2 boys and 23 others. So 25 officers who probably thought they were going to have a Sunday morning off ended up showing up at our Christmas party because Ron brought 25 officers to make sure that every child had somebody to watch out for them in the eventuality that something went wrong. And looking back now, it seems a little bit odd because we're all hopefully in about 15 minutes going to walk into the room across the hall. And I think this year we have about 700 children. And Jennifer mentioned to you about getting all close together and how Jake's House feels like a family. So I'll explain to you again how the tradition started. So the number is 247-5253 or 247-JAKE. And the phone used to go right into our house. So Irene would pick up the phone, hi, Jake's House, and the mom would say, my son or my daughter likes this, and Irene would talk to them for a couple hours, and she'd buy the present, and lo and behold, they'd show up at the party, and the present would materialize, and Irene wouldn't explain who she was, nor did they care. They were just happy that their child felt embraced, felt loved, and that they had somewhere to go at Christmas time. So the next year, 25 children became 51, 51 became 109, and this year, Irene, although we've tried to get her to stop, wrapped 704 presents. So all the presents you actually see in the hall, plus the 150 for Ottawa next week. We're going to have to work this out, Irene, because Irene can't do it because our basement just isn't big enough to hold 1,000 presents. But nonetheless, if you think about what Ron did for us and what Irene continues to do, there were 2 gifts that Ron gave us that day. Sorry. The first one was that he talked to the people who worked with him and convinced them that it was worth it for them to come and spend time for kids to help their parents know that their children were taken care of. But with a little bit of distance and a little bit of time, I realized that the gift that Ron really gave us that day was hope. So Ron made us believe that when you see a number like 400,000, it's just, you can't think of it like, how do you help 400,000 families? Right? In our province, I looked this morning, and the province of Ontario, and the Premier would know this more than I would, 14,300,085 people. Well, what's important is 5 of those people are Irene and I and James, Jake, and Jonathan. And this is our Premier, this is our Chief. These are the people that lead us, and these are the people that make us believe. Specifically, the number in Ontario is 140,000 affected by autism. Again, a big number. The number we focus on is 40,000 of them who are children, right? And our motto, thanks to the inspiration that people like Ron have given us, and because of the Chief and because Premier Ford are willing to support, is that our vow to the community is that if you need 40,000 kids with help, we will find you 41,000 volunteers. Now, why can I sit here and boldly say something that would seem so ridiculous? Because Ron gave us hope, because the Chief has been with us, because Premier Ford is good enough. He could have been 100 different places today, and I'm sure he's got to get somewhere quickly. But Jennifer said it early enough, that the Jake's House family is very small. Joelle and Marianne and Jennifer and James are 5 people who now manage not only this 2,000 person Christmas party that we're going to go see in 2 minutes, but we've now been able to tackle housing, which is a critical issue. We are well on our way in a mentoring program that is basically giving one-on-one help. Irene had always said it's not good enough to give volunteers at this party once a year. We've got to put volunteers in the family every week. And when Irene talks, I listen. So we've started an awfully small thing that has turned into a really big thing, as Jennifer pointed out, because of all of you. And so when we decided that we had to start, there are so many people that help us out. It was hard to pick one person of the literally thousands who have helped. But when you kind of come back and you kind of see where we started and the symmetry of that we started in this building, this is the largest event we've ever had. The charity has never, ever been able to help as many families as we do today, right? That I could not, Irene could not, our team could not draw any other line than directly back to Ron Taverner. So I'm going to ask Irene to come up because Irene's the boss, we all know that. And I'm going to ask Irene if she wouldn't mind, and for all of you, to honor Ron with our first ever Legends of Distinction Award. Thank you so much. Couple of words?
First of all, I'm overwhelmed by this honor. It's amazing that I was even considered for this great award. But I think this award, it could have been for 1,000 other people that are out there doing the work of bringing people together to work on autism, to work on mentoring, to work on the number of things that Jake's House is involved with. I can't thank Irene and Dave enough for their vision, their work. As was mentioned, 14 years ago, I became involved in Jake's House and have been involved in every year since then. And I've seen the organization grow, the volunteers grow, the help that they're giving grow. And it's absolutely amazing to think that there are people out there that care the way that the Bodanises do and their team does. So again, I want to thank all of you for being here. I just want to say they're the chief. I wrote the chief's speech for him this morning. I want to thank him very much. You know, it's very humbling when for anyone, when you hear people giving you accolades that you don't really think that you might deserve, because there are a whole bunch of other people that are well deserving of the things they've done and contributed and spent time and their own money and all of those things. So that's one of the reasons I'm so overwhelmed with this. I thank you. I can't thank the Premier enough for coming today and showing up. And thank all of you. And just continue doing what you're doing, continue helping, continue bringing more people into the fold. And next year, maybe we'll use the whole Congress Center. And we'll even help you wrap, Irene. So thank you again. Thank you so much.
If you want, we'll pick up that box for you. Oh, can we just...